As we finally reached the police station, the truck's high beams still glaring behind us, we knew that this was a night we would never forget, our hearts pounding with the fear of what might happen next. My friends and I were on a road trip, driving down a deserted highway in the middle of the night. The thrill of adventure and the open road was exhilarating. We laughed, played music, and enjoyed the sense of freedom that comes with a long drive. The night was peaceful, the road stretching out before us with no other cars in sight. We felt completely at ease, unaware of the terror that was about to disrupt our journey. It started with a faint glimmer of headlights in the distance. At first, we didn't think much of it, assuming it was just another traveler on the same route. But as the truck got closer, our casual conversations turned to uneasy silence. The truck was following us closely, too closely. We decided to speed up, hoping to create some distance. But no matter how fast we went, the truck remained right behind us, its headlights glaring into our rearview mirror. The driver began honking incessantly and flashing the high beams, turning our discomfort into outright fear. The relentless pursuit made our hearts race. What did the driver want? Why was he chasing us? The questions swirled in our minds as we desperately searched for a way to escape the unnerving presence. Our attempts to lose the truck were futile. Every turn we took, every lane we changed, the truck matched our moves. The tension in the car was palpable, our breaths coming in shallow gasps as the reality of the situation set in. The truck wasn't just following us, it was hunting us. In a moment of collective decision, we spotted a gas station up ahead and decided to pull over, hoping the truck would continue on its way. But as we stopped, so did the truck. The driver got out, and we saw he was a large, intimidating man with a menacing look. He started yelling at us, accusing us of stealing something from him. His voice was filled with anger and aggression, sending chills down our spines. We were terrified, unsure of what to do next. The atmosphere was thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. Fear took over, and we scrambled back into the car, locking the doors behind us. The truck driver continued to yell as we sped off, our hearts pounding. The sense of danger was palpable, the night taking on a sinister edge. As we drove away, the truck roared back to life and continued to chase us. The pursuit felt like a nightmare come to life. We navigated the dark, deserted roads with a single focus, losing the truck and finding safety. Every turn, every straightaway, the truck was right there, its headlights glaring into our rearview mirror. The fear was suffocating, each of us feeling the weight of the situation pressing down. Hours passed, and our desperation grew. The dark, winding road seemed endless. The truck's relentless pursuit left us with a sinking feeling of dread. We could feel the driver's malevolent intent, and it drove us to push the car to its limits. The tension in the car was thick, every noise making us jump. We spotted a sign for a nearby town and knew we had to find the police station. The thought of getting help was the only thing keeping us going. We drove faster, praying we wouldn't see the truck's headlights anymore. Our hearts pounded as we finally saw the lights of the police station up ahead. The sense of relief was overwhelming, but the fear was still very real. We knew we had to reach the station before the truck caught up to us. We burst into the police station, our voices overlapping as we recounted the harrowing chase to the officers on duty. They listened intently, taking our fears seriously. The sense of relief was immense, but the fear still lingered. The police assured us they would investigate, and a few officers went out to check the surrounding area for the truck driver. The waiting was agonizing, our minds racing with thoughts of what could have happened if we hadn't found the police station in time. The officers returned, reporting that they found no sign of the truck or its driver. The news was both a relief and a disappointment. We were safe, but the threat still felt all too real. The police advised us to stay in the station for a while, just in case. We sat in the brightly lit lobby, the stark contrast to the dark, frightening roads we had just escaped from. The feeling of safety was a welcome change, but the fear was far from gone. The experience left a deep mark on all of us. The memory of that night, the relentless chase, and the intimidating truck driver haunted our thoughts. The unresolved mystery of his accusations and his disappearance only added to the fear. We talked about the incident often, trying to make sense of it, but the answers remained elusive. The sense of vulnerability and danger from that night stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn from safe to terrifying. Even now, I can't drive down a deserted highway at night without feeling a shiver of fear. The face of the truck driver, his angry shouts, and the endless chase are forever etched in my memory, a chilling reminder of the night we were hunted. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that chase, the relentless pursuit, and the unknown driver will haunt me forever. Ready for another dose of fear? Stay tuned for the next terrifying story. Subscribe and tell us which story scared you the most. As the sinister smile of the receptionist sent chills down our spines, we knew that this night at the haunted motel would haunt us forever. We were exhausted after hours of driving, our eyes heavy and our bodies aching for rest. The small roadside motel we stopped at looked run down, but we were too tired to continue. We just needed a place to sleep for the night. The receptionist was a strange man who handed us the key to a room at the end of the hall. The entire place had an eerie, neglected vibe, but we brushed it off, too focused on our exhaustion to care. As we settled into the room, an oppressive atmosphere settled over us. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, but we attributed it to our tired minds playing tricks. We tried to get some rest, but the unsettling feeling persisted. In the middle of the night, I was jolted awake by strange noises coming from the hallway. Footsteps echoed softly, accompanied by faint whispers. At first, I thought it was other guests, but the sounds grew louder and more distinct, sending chills down my spine. I lay there, heart pounding, listening intently. The footsteps seemed to be coming closer, and the whispers turned into incomprehensible murmurs. My unease grew with every passing second, the oppressive atmosphere becoming almost unbearable. Suddenly, I felt a cold, piercing sensation, as if I was being watched. I slowly opened my eyes and scanned the room, my breath catching in my throat. There, in the corner, stood a shadowy figure, its presence dark and menacing. My scream shattered the silence, and I fumbled to turn on the light. The figure vanished in an instant, leaving only the empty corner. My friends woke up, their faces pale with fear, and we all huddled together, trembling. We tried to rationalize what I had seen, but the fear was too real. The shadowy figure's presence lingered in the room, a dark stain on our minds. We knew we couldn't stay there any longer. In a state of panic, we decided to leave the motel immediately. We packed up our things as quickly as possible, every creak and groan of the old building heightening our fear. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to follow us, pressing down on us with an almost physical force. As we walked down the eerie hallway back to the reception area, the strange noises continued to echo around us. The footsteps and whispers seemed to follow us, a constant reminder of the terror we had experienced. Our hearts pounded with fear, and we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The motel had turned into a place of nightmares, and we needed to escape. We burst into the reception area, our voices overlapping as we recounted the night's events to the receptionist. He listened with a sinister smile, his eyes gleaming with a strange satisfaction. The fear we felt only intensified at his response. He revealed that many people had complained of the same thing. The realization that we weren't alone in our experience was both comforting and horrifying. The thought of so many others experiencing the same terror made the situation even more sinister. The receptionist's smile never wavered, and we couldn't shake the feeling that he knew more than he was letting on. The motel's dark history seemed to seep through the walls, a malevolent presence that couldn't be ignored. The experience left a deep mark on all of us. The memory of that night, the shadowy figure, and the sinister smile of the receptionist haunted our thoughts. The oppressive atmosphere of the motel and the strange noises stayed with us, a constant reminder of the terror we had faced. We vowed never to stay at a roadside motel again. The sense of vulnerability and danger from that night stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn from safe to terrifying. Even now, I can't drive past a small, run-down motel without feeling a shiver of fear. The memory of the shadowy figure, its dark presence, and the sinister smile of the receptionist are forever etched in my mind. A chilling reminder of the night we stayed at the haunted motel. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that night, the haunting atmosphere, and the unknown figure will haunt me forever. Feeling scared yet? Hold on tight. The next horror awaits. Hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. As we sped down the deserted highway, the man's car still visible in the rearview mirror, a chilling realization set in. This was a night we would never forget. We were on a long road trip, my friends and I, driving through the night to reach our destination by morning. Exhausted and in need of a break, we decided to stop at a rest area to stretch our legs and use the restroom. The place was almost deserted, the quietness of the night amplified by the emptiness around us. It seemed peaceful enough, just another pit stop on our journey. Little did we know, it would soon become a scene of terror. As I walked back to the car, I noticed a strange man watching us from a distance. He stood next to an old, battered car, his eyes fixed on us with a disturbing smile that sent shivers down my spine. Something about him felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I hurried back to the car, my unease growing with each step. My friend soon returned, and we quickly got into the car, trying to ignore the man's unsettling presence. The atmosphere was tense. The once peaceful rest area now felt ominous. As we prepared to leave, the man started walking towards us. He knocked on the window, asking for help. His car had supposedly broken down, and he needed a ride to the nearest town. His voice was calm, but there was something in his eyes that screamed danger. We politely declined, our instincts telling us to get away as fast as we could. The man didn't take no for an answer and kept insisting, his tone becoming more urgent. The tension in the car was palpable as we tried to drive away, the man's figure looming in the rearview mirror. The man's request for help was unsettling, his persistence only adding to our fear. We tried to remain calm, but every instinct screamed that something was wrong. His disturbing smile never faltered, even as we refused his request. We quickly decided to leave, feeling the urgency to put distance between us and the man. As we drove off, he continued to approach the car, his eyes locked onto us. The atmosphere was thick with dread, our hearts pounding with each passing second. The man's car started following us as we left the rest area. The sight of his old, battered vehicle in the rearview mirror sent waves of panic through us. He matched our speed, keeping a consistent distance, his headlights glaring ominously. We knew we had to lose him, but the deserted highway offered few options. Every turn we took, every attempt to shake him off seemed futile. The man's persistence was terrifying, his intentions unknown but undoubtedly sinister. Our fear escalated as the man continued to follow us. The deserted highway, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, now felt like a trap. We drove faster, the car's engine straining as we tried to put distance between us and our pursuer. The tension inside the car was unbearable. Every mile felt like an eternity, our breaths shallow and hearts racing. The man's car stayed close, his headlights a constant reminder of the danger we were in. We took turns, sped up, and even turned off our lights at one point, trying everything to lose him. But the man was relentless, his car a dark shadow following us through the night. The fear was suffocating, the thought of what he might do if he caught us unbearable. After what felt like hours, we finally managed to lose him. We drove into a more populated area, the safety of streetlights and other cars offering a sense of relief. But the fear didn't dissipate entirely. The experience had left its mark. We pulled into a well-lit gas station, our hands shaking and nerves frayed. The relief of being safe was overwhelming, but the fear still lingered. We discussed what had happened, each of us trying to make sense of the night's events. The realization of how dangerous the situation could have been hit us hard. We were grateful to have escaped, but the thought of what might have happened if we hadn't was terrifying. The man's disturbing smile and relentless pursuit haunted our thoughts. We decided to avoid stopping at deserted rest areas in the future. The experience had taught us a valuable lesson about safety and vigilance. The fear was still there, lurking in the back of our minds, a constant reminder of the night's terror. As we continued our journey, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every car that appeared in the rearview mirror sent waves of anxiety through us. The memory of the man and his sinister presence stayed with us, a shadow over our road trip. The experience left a deep mark on all of us. The memory of that night, the disturbing man, and his relentless pursuit haunted our thoughts. The sense of vulnerability and danger from that night stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn from safe to terrifying. We talked about the incident often, trying to make sense of it, but the answers remained elusive. The unresolved mystery of who the man was and what his true intentions were added to the fear. The sense of unease was constant, a shadow that followed us long after the trip ended. Even now, I can't drive past a deserted rest area without feeling a shiver of fear. The memory of the man's disturbing smile and relentless pursuit is forever etched in my mind, a chilling reminder of the night we were hunted. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that night, the haunting presence of the stranger, and the unknown intentions will haunt me forever. Don't go anywhere. The nightmare continues with our next story. Make sure to subscribe and comment on your favorite part so far. As we stood in front of our vandalized car, the strange marks and scratches telling a sinister story, we realized that the shortcut through the forest was a path straight to hell. It was supposed to be a simple road trip, just a few friends looking to explore new places and make memories. The open road called to us, and we answered with enthusiasm. Little did we know, our adventure would soon take a dark turn. The GPS suggested a shortcut to save time. The idea of shaving off a few hours sounded appealing, and we eagerly agreed. The sense of adventure was strong as we turned onto the narrow, deserted road surrounded by dense forest. At first, the road seemed like any other, but soon it became clear that this was no ordinary shortcut. The trees pressed in on both sides, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sunlight. The atmosphere grew heavy, a sense of unease settling over us. As we drove deeper into the forest, the car began to sputter. The engine groaned and the dashboard lights flickered. Panic set in as the car finally gave out, leaving us stranded in the middle of nowhere. We tried our phones, but there was no signal. The reality of our situation hit us hard. It was getting dark, and we had no way of contacting anyone. We popped the hood and tried to figure out what was wrong, but none of us were mechanics. Our attempts to fix the car were futile, and the fear of being stuck there all night began to take hold. The realization that we were alone in the dense, darkening forest was terrifying. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow menacing. The night was closing in, and with it came a growing sense of dread. As we huddled around the car, discussing our options, we began to hear strange noises coming from the forest. At first, it was just rustling leaves and snapping twigs, sounds that could easily be attributed to animals. But then the noises became more distinct. It sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving through the underbrush. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I scanned the darkness, trying to see what was out there. My friends were equally unnerved, their faces pale in the fading light. The noises grew louder, closer, and the sense of being watched became overwhelming. We could feel eyes on us, tracking our every move. Panic set in, and we knew we had to leave the car and find help. With no other option, we decided to abandon the car and walk back to the main road. The fear was palpable, every step away from the car feeling like a step into the unknown. The forest seemed to close in around us, the noises following us as we moved. The walk through the dark forest was harrowing. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent waves of fear through us. The darkness was oppressive, the canopy of trees blocking out even the faintest light from the sky. We could barely see a few feet in front of us. The feeling of being pursued was relentless. We constantly checked over our shoulders, expecting to see something or someone emerge from the shadows. The sense of dread grew with every step, the noises from the forest never ceasing. Hours passed, each one feeling like an eternity. Our legs were heavy with exhaustion, but we pushed on, driven by the primal fear of what might happen if we stopped. The forest seemed endless, the path back to the main road a distant hope. Finally, we saw the lights of a passing car in the distance. Relief washed over us as we reached the main road and flagged down a driver for help. The nightmare seemed to be over, but the fear lingered, a shadow over our relief. The next day, we returned to the car with a mechanic, filled with apprehension about what we might find. The forest seemed less menacing in the daylight, but the fear from the night before was still fresh in our minds. As we approached the car, our hearts sank. It was completely vandalized, the windows shattered, and strange marks and scratches covering the body. The sight was shocking, a physical manifestation of the terror we had felt. The mechanic was baffled, unable to explain the damage. We looked at the strange marks, trying to make sense of them, but they only deepened the mystery. Whatever had watched us from the forest had left its mark, a chilling reminder of the night's events. The realization that something, or someone, had been out there, watching us was horrifying. The forest, which had seemed so peaceful, now felt like a place of malevolence. We knew we had to leave and never come back. The experience left a deep mark on all of us. The memory of that night, the strange noises, and the vandalized car haunted our thoughts. The sense of vulnerability and danger from that night stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn from safe to terrifying. We talked about the incident often, trying to make sense of it, but the answers remained elusive. The unresolved mystery of what was watching us and why the car was vandalized added to the fear. The sense of unease was constant, a shadow that followed us long after the trip ended. Even now, I can't drive through a dense forest without feeling a shiver of fear. The memory of the strange noises, the feeling of being watched, and the vandalized car is forever etched in my mind. A chilling reminder of the night we took the shortcut to hell. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that night, the haunting presence of the forest, and the unknown intentions will haunt me forever. If you thought that was terrifying, just wait. The next story is even more chilling. Subscribe now and leave a comment if you're brave enough. As we turned to speak to the young woman in the back seat, our hearts stopped. The seat was empty, and there was no trace of her ever being there. We were driving back from a party late at night, the road illuminated only by the car's headlights. The music was low, and the conversation was filled with the usual post-party chatter. To avoid traffic, we decided to take a deserted road through the countryside. The night seemed peaceful, and we felt a sense of calm after the lively event. The road was quiet, and the darkness seemed to envelop us as we drove. We were all in good spirits, enjoying the quiet end to a fun night. Little did we know, our journey was about to take a terrifying turn. As we drove, the beam of our headlights caught a figure standing by the roadside. It was a young woman, hitchhiking. She was dressed in white, her clothes and hair appearing almost ethereal in the dim light. Her eyes had a lost, distant look, and she seemed out of place in the desolate landscape. We slowed down, debating whether to stop. Despite the late hour and the eerie surroundings, we decided to offer her a ride. The thought of leaving her alone on that dark road didn't sit well with us. As we pulled over, she walked towards the car with a slow, almost hesitant gait. She got into the back seat without a word, her presence immediately changing the atmosphere in the car. There was a chill in the air, and the silence was thick, as if the night itself was holding its breath. We asked where she needed to go, and she simply pointed forward, indicating the direction of the next town. The ride was tense, the silence in the car growing heavier with each passing mile. The woman stared out the window, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. We tried to engage her in conversation, asking if she was okay or needed anything, but she remained silent, her gaze never wavering. The unease in the car was palpable. Every glance at the rearview mirror showed her staring out into the darkness, her expression unreadable. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. As we neared the town, a sense of relief began to wash over us, but it was mixed with a deep, unshakable dread. Something about her silence and the way she carried herself felt otherworldly. We couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The tension reached its peak as we approached the destination she had indicated. The anticipation of finally dropping her off and ending the unsettling journey was almost unbearable. When we reached the edge of the town, we turned to tell her we had arrived, but the back seat was empty. She had vanished without a sound. Panic set in, our minds racing to make sense of what had just happened. We searched the car, checking the back seat and the floor, but there was no sign of her. Disbelief turned to fear as we realized she had disappeared into thin air. We got out of the car, our eyes scanning the dark streets for any sign of her. The cold night air seemed to close in around us, amplifying our anxiety. How could she have just vanished? We frantically discussed what to do next, our voices shaky with fear. The idea of a ghostly hitchhiker seemed absurd, but the reality of her disappearance was undeniable. We decided to find someone in the town who might know something about her. We approached a nearby house, the lights still on inside. An elderly man answered the door, and we nervously explained what had happened. His expression turned somber as he listened. When we finished, he nodded slowly and invited us in. The man told us that over the years, several people had seen the same figure on that road. A young woman, always hitchhiking, always disappearing once she reached her destination. He explained that she was believed to be the ghost of a girl who had died in a car accident on that road many years ago. The more he spoke, the more our fear grew. The stories he shared were eerily similar to our experience. Each account involved the same lost look in her eyes, the same silence, and the same sudden disappearance. We realized we weren't alone in our encounter with the phantom hitchhiker. The weight of the man's words settled over us. The legend of the ghostly hitchhiker had become a chilling reality for us. We thanked him for his time and left, our minds reeling from the night's events. The experience left a deep mark on all of us. The memory of that night, the eerie silence, and the phantom hitchhiker haunted our thoughts. The sense of vulnerability and danger from that night stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn from ordinary to terrifying. We talked about the incident often, trying to make sense of it, but the answers remained elusive. The unresolved mystery of the phantom hitchhiker and her tragic story added to the fear. The sense of unease was constant, a shadow that followed us long after the trip ended. Even now, I can't drive down a deserted road at night without feeling a shiver of fear. The memory of the young woman in white, her lost eyes, and her silent disappearance is forever etched in my mind. A chilling reminder of the night we encountered the phantom hitchhiker. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that night, the haunting presence of the hitchhiker, and the unknown intentions will haunt me forever. Need to catch your breath? Too bad. The next fright is just around the corner. Subscribe and let us know in the comments how scared you are. As we sped down the forest road, the sinister figures in black robes standing by the roadside watching us with threatening looks. I knew we would never escape the haunting memory of that night. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend trip, a chance for my friends and me to escape the city and enjoy nature. We decided to explore a little-known trail in a remote forest, hoping to find some tranquility and adventure. The day started beautifully, with clear skies and a light breeze. The forest was dense and lush, the perfect setting for our hike. Little did we know, our adventure would soon turn into a nightmare. As we hiked deeper into the forest, we marveled at the beauty of our surroundings. The sounds of birds and rustling leaves created a serene atmosphere, making us feel at ease. We joked and laughed, enjoying the escape from our daily routines. After a few hours, we stumbled upon a small clearing. To our shock, we saw a group of people dressed in black robes gathered around a makeshift altar. They were performing some kind of ritual, chanting in a language we couldn't understand. The scene was surreal and unsettling. Fear and curiosity gripped us. We decided to hide behind some bushes, watching in silence. The ritual grew more intense, the chanting louder and more fervent. It became clear that this was no ordinary gathering. Something dark and sinister was unfolding before our eyes. Our hearts pounded as we watched, the air thick with tension. We knew we shouldn't be there, but we couldn't tear our eyes away from the eerie spectacle. Suddenly, one of the cult members spotted us. He pointed in our direction and started shouting, alerting the others. Panic surged through us as we realized we had been discovered. The cult members' chants turned to angry shouts as they began to move toward us. Without thinking, we bolted from our hiding spot, sprinting back toward the trail. The forest, once serene, now felt like a maze of shadows and threats. We could hear the cult members behind us, their footsteps pounding the earth as they gave chase. The fear was overwhelming. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent shivers down our spines. The cult members were shouting incomprehensible things, their voices filled with rage and malice. We didn't dare look back, focusing only on putting as much distance between us and them as possible. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, our hearts racing as we navigated the forest, trying to find our way back to the car. The sense of urgency was palpable. We knew we had to escape before they caught us. The run through the forest was a blur of fear and desperation. The trees seemed to close in around us, the underbrush snagging at our clothes and slowing our progress. We pushed forward, driven by the primal instinct to survive. After what felt like an eternity, we finally saw the glint of metal through the trees, the car. Relief surged through us, but it was tempered by the realization that the cult members were still in pursuit. We couldn't afford to slow down. We reached the car and fumbled with the keys, our hands shaking with adrenaline. The cult members were getting closer, their shouts growing louder. The tension was unbearable as we finally managed to unlock the doors and pile in. The engine roared to life, and we sped off, the tires kicking up dirt and leaves. The sight of the cult members fading into the distance brought a momentary sense of relief, but the fear lingered. We were safe, for now. As we drove back to town, the adrenaline began to wear off, leaving us with a heavy sense of dread. The road twisted and turned through the forest, each shadow and movement a potential threat. We couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then, as we rounded a bend, we saw them, the cult members. They stood by the roadside, their black robes stark against the dark trees. Their eyes followed us as we passed, their expressions filled with malice. It was clear they hadn't given up on us. The fear reignited, and we sped up, desperate to put more distance between us and those sinister figures. The memory of their threatening looks burned into our minds, a constant reminder of the danger we had narrowly escaped. We finally reached the safety of the town, but the experience had left us shaken. The cult members' presence by the roadside confirmed that the nightmare was real. We vowed never to return to that forest again. The experience left a lasting impact on all of us. The memory of that night, the cult members, and their sinister ritual haunted our thoughts. The sense of vulnerability and danger stayed with us, a constant reminder of how quickly things can turn terrifying. We talked about the incident often, trying to make sense of it, but the answers remained elusive. The unresolved mystery of the cult and their dark intentions added to the fear. The sense of unease was constant, a shadow that followed us long after the trip ended. Even now, I can't walk through a forest without feeling a shiver of fear. The memory of the black-robed figures, their chants, and their threatening looks is forever etched in my mind. A chilling reminder of the night we encountered the cult in the forest. The fear has become a part of me, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. The memory of that night serves as a constant reminder to stay vigilant, to never let my guard down. The terror of that night, the haunting presence of the cult, and the unknown intentions will haunt me forever.